if Venus is the goddess of beauty, then the planet Venus must be responsible for how you look, or at least how attractive you are to others, right? Actually, nothing could be further from the truth. One might argue that in our day and age, Venus is the most misunderstood of all the planets. You see, people equate it to the planet of love or the planet of beauty, thinking that it is the one that governs relationships and how beautiful people are. That's definitely not the role of Venus. Venus is actually responsible for what we perceive as beautiful ourselves and what we like, what we appreciate, what we enjoy. It is the planet of enjoyment rather than the planet of the relationship itself, which is actually governed by the seventh house, or the beauty that we project outside with our appearance. That's the responsibility of the ascendant, the sun, our attractiveness, and of Jupiter. Yes, you heard it right. Jupiter is actually responsible for the attractiveness of a person in terms of how he looks. With that being said, Venus is far from insignificant because, in reality, it's the reason astrologers exist. In fact, there's a joke among astrologers that people come to us either for the money or the honey. Well, Venus is both. Venus is actually the significator of money in one's chart, how wealthy he will become, how well can he handle money. It is also the significator of his relationships to women and the kind of women he attracts in his life, but it's not a significator of romantic relationships as such. In fact, it can indicate a romantic partner, but it will never indicate the interactions with that partner. That's the seventh house and the seventh house lord. How a partner will look and behave, on the other hand, is very much an attribute of Venus because it shows what we are attracted to, what we actually like. With all of that being said, it's obvious that the dignity of Venus and its position in the houses, its strength, will determine quite a few things about our lives. In fact, one can argue that it is one of the most significant positions in one's birth chart. Now, unlike most planets, Venus is not affected too much by the sign it is in, although there is a direct relationship between the sign and the outcome it produces. It is far more affected by conjunctions, aspects, and house placements. With that being said, let's actually look at what the sign Venus resides in means. Let's start with the fire signs. Fire signs are not a bad position for Venus, but they do indicate that in terms of partners, the person will look for someone who has either a lot of activity, he's an athlete, etc., a lot of power, someone who has rank, position, or someone who has a lot of public visibility, for example, a celebrity, an actor or an actress, etc. If Venus is in water signs, on the other hand, it actually means that there is a desire for emotional connection, not only for physical beauty or for some material attribute. There needs to be drama and there needs to be some kind of emotional connection. Again, there has to be feelings. These are the hopeless romantics. And that's actually a detrimental point for Venus. Even though it is exalted in Pisces, in all of the water signs, Venus becomes a little too emotional, shall we say, a little too idealistic. The opposite is true about the earth signs, where Venus is mostly interested in practical things, in the realities that are on the table instead of in some ideal it wants to pursue. So here, instead of a hopeless romantic, one would look for a frugal partner, someone who is there to stay, someone who is not about to play games, someone who can provide material comforts. Now, earth signs can make someone a gold digger or someone who is too greedy, but that's not always a bad thing. In fact, it can also produce millionaires due to their desire to accumulate more wealth. In earth signs, Venus usually likes to accumulate a lot of friends around, a lot of contacts. It likes to convey ideas and hear ideas from others. It can also be a little too unsettled, a little too wobbly in terms of relationships, searching for multiple partners, open relationships, something that is not too restrictive, but that's again something that can become a problem if not managed correctly. The house placements, on the other hand, are quite a different story because Venus does great in the fourth house, in the privacy of one's home. It does quite poorly in the 10th house. Basically, unless we're talking about a porn star, that's not the ideal position. It's an indicator of someone using their beauty to promote themselves or using sex to promote themselves. The same can be said about the first house, where Venus basically creates a situation where people can only see the beauty but not everything else about the person, basically making every interaction only about how someone looks. The situation isn't that great in the seventh house either, because in the seventh house, a person looks for relationships, but sometimes it becomes an obsession. And it can also indicate multiple relationships. He likes the interactions with others too much. He wants more and more and more. On the other hand, it is a great position for someone who is a businessman, because then that interaction is all about money, not about love. And in this case, it becomes quite profitable. It becomes quite successful as well. The worst placement for Venus in terms of strength and in terms of its ability to function correctly is the sixth house, because the sixth house is the antithesis of everything Venus represents. It is all about mundane work, hard labor. It's all about debts, diseases. I mean, someone who is vomiting, someone who is sick. It's not the most attractive thing in the world. It's not the most beautiful thing in the world. Just isn't. It is also part of life, but it's not the best place for Venus to be in. It's not where it functions correctly. Now let's talk about the medical implications of the dignity of Venus. First of all, it is responsible for our eyesight. If it is not well placed, then one can expect eye problems. It is also responsible for the fluids in our body, especially such things as the lymphatic system and semen. So you have quite a direct connection between a male being infertile and the position of his Venus. It also indicates how well do our kidneys function and how well can they regulate fluids in our bodies, as well as how well can they filter out toxins and remove them from our body through the excretion process. It is also connected to veins, their very name being a derivative of Venus. Now, the reason for that is that while arteries are reddish to maroon in color due to the oxygen content, veins are usually bluish in color because the blood in them is already depleted of oxygen and usually has absorbed some CO2, turning it slightly bluish color. Now, as such, it is also directly connected to blood pressure. So, when someone has high blood pressure, they should check out the position of Venus in their chart, especially if that Venus is in Earth signs, in water signs, and when it is aspected by Saturn, which is a restrictive planet, one that creates pressure. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, and if you wish to learn more about medical astrology and astrology in general, please check out my website. You'll find the link below. Thank you.